but no clear idea of how to achieve it. She decided she wanted to go to Cambridge at the age of 9, but her school didn't send people to Cambridge and didn't give students a clear idea of how to get the top grades. So she worked it all out for herself, and in so doing, created a system for getting the top grades and into the best universities that works every time. Lucy loves working with students because she gets to help them fulfill their dreams and see their confidence grow. Lucy recently launched her new Personal Statement Masterclass, which is an online course guiding students through the process of choosing their 5 UK university options and preparing to write their personal statement. Alright, so we've got a number of people in the room now, so I would now like to hand over to Lucy Parsons to share her insights about crafting a winning personal statement for UK admissions. Let's give a warm welcome and plenty of love to Lucy Parsons.
Hello.
Hi Lucy, hi, how are you?
I'm okay, sorry, a bit crazy.
It's very early in the UK now, so I should be saying good morning. Good morning to you. All right. So yes, let's get going and tell us more about, how to craft a winning personal statement. Over to you, Lucy.
Brilliant. Okay, I'll share my screen. Okay, welcome everybody, and thank you for coming along to my session at the summit. So what I'm going to be talking about today is how to write a UCAS personal statement that gets you into top UK universities. So what we're going to cover is what is a UCAS personal statement, what part it plays in the admissions process to UK universities, my framework for how to successfully write a UCAS personal statement, and the writing style that works in UCAS personal statements. But first, I wanted to introduce myself. So this is me, a picture of me on my graduation day at Cambridge University in the beautiful gardens at Newnham College. That's my book, the 10-Step Guide to Acing Every Exam You Ever Take. I've been featured in these UK publications, and this is the workbook for my personal statement masterclass, and I'll be taking what I'm sharing with you from there today. Okay, so this is the UK university application process. So everybody has to write a UCAS application if you are going to apply for a UK university. And there are various other steps in the application process, and it depends on which university you're applying to and which courses as to which of these other steps happen. But if you want to apply to a UK university, you have to do an application through UCAS, and UCAS stands for the Universities and Colleges Admissions Service. So it's a bit like a government agency that manages all the applications to UK universities. And it's an online system where you input your application. So the personal statement is part of the UCAS application. So everybody will do a UCAS personal statement. You may be asked to do admissions tests. So for example, if you are applying to do law, there's the LNAT that you might, oh no, that's for English, the LNAT, sorry, for law, or the BMAT or UK or UCAT for medicine, and those kinds of things. And admissions tests are becoming increasingly important in the whole process. Sorry, that the slide moved on. And then sometimes...
Lucy, can I stop you for a while? I think we are looking at your desktop.
Oh,
maybe you're not sharing the right screen, yeah.
I am sharing my screen. Stop share. Let me share. Sorry. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, this is the correct one, yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Do you want me to go back, or are you happy for me to continue?
Was this your first screen?
I just showed these pictures.
Okay, yeah, I think we can continue. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, sorry that you didn't see that. So you can see this is the process through which people apply to UK universities. So at the beginning is the UCAS application through the Universities and Colleges Admissions Service. And everybody has to do that. And then these 3 steps in between, the admissions test, submitting written work and interview, are kind of optional steps. Most universities won't ask for both the admissions test and for you to submit written work. They'll ask for one or the other of those. But some universities don't ask for any of these things. So it just depends on the university. But for those universities that ask for admissions tests, they're becoming increasingly important. So if you do see that a university is asking you to do that, then do take that very seriously. Okay, so this is a quick guide to the timelines for applying through UCAS. So you can register and start an application form from May. Okay, so if you were doing it for entrance in 2021, so in autumn 2021, you would be able to log on to the UCAS system from May. So whichever year cycle you're doing it in, you can open it up and register an account and start inputting your details from then. You can submit applications from the 8th of September. So if you've filled it all in, you can press the submit button from the 8th of September. If you're applying to some of the most competitive and prestigious courses, like applying to Oxford and Cambridge, or medicine, dentistry, or veterinary medicine, I recommend that you submit your application by the 27th of September, but the final date for those subjects to submit is the 15th of October, and that's the same every single year, the 15th of October. And they ask for that early submission because all of those courses will ask for probably admissions tests and definitely interviews. For everybody else, if you're applying to other high-ranking UK universities like Durham or Bristol or Nottingham or Exeter, or places like UCL or Imperial, I'd really recommend getting your application in very, very soon after this final date for medicine and dentistry, because lots of those Oxbridge people will be applying for courses at other high-ranking universities. So in order to compete, you want to have your application in at roughly the same time as them. And because universities will start sifting through applications as soon as they receive them and start making offers. Not all universities will do that, but some universities will do that. So you will stand a better chance of receiving offers in a competitive field if you submit your application early. Then admissions tests are usually held in early November. Interviews, well, for Oxbridge, they're usually in the first 2 weeks of December, but can be any time in that kind of December kind of period. And then the last application date for entry is always in the middle of January, and that would, for 2021, that's the 15th of January, but that date might change slightly year on year, but it's the middle of January. Okay, so the real thing here is it's a really good idea to get your application in early, because you get the eyes of the admissions tutors on your application early, and that means that you are more likely to be offered a place, basically. So, and by getting it in early, you can also focus on other parts of the admissions process, such as preparing for the tests. If you're doing A-levels, like most students do here in the UK, the school term that's starting around now in September up until Christmas is one of the busiest and hardest terms of your school life, and so getting the UCAS application done and dusted is a really good idea to get it done early, so you can focus on all the other important things that you want to do. And you can also focus on getting the grades, which is really important. And people who don't get their applications in early often feel quite overwhelmed in this term. So yeah, it's a really good idea. Okay, so what is a personal statement? It's your chance to say why you're a good candidate for this particular course. So the UCAS website says it's your chance to describe your ambitions, skills, and experience. And it's really important that you use your own voice. So write this in your own words, so that it comes across as very genuine and authentic to the people who are reading it and deciding whether to give you a place. So who is going to read your personal statement? Admissions tutors or members of their admissions team. So admissions tutors are academics who've made a career out of studying what you want to study. They love it and they want you to love it too. They want to enjoy teaching you as well. So they'll be looking at your application, wondering whether you're going to do the work, whether you're going to ask interesting questions and think deeply about your subject. So if you can indicate to them very strongly in your personal statement that you are very keen to do the work, you've got lots of interesting questions to ask, and you are already thinking deeply about their subject, that's a really positive signal to the admissions tutors. And they want to be sure that you're committed to studying what you want to study. And we'll talk a bit more about how you can show that in a minute. So when you are writing your personal statement, you are writing for the admissions tutor. So you are effectively writing a letter to them. You don't format it as a letter, but that is the person who you are trying to communicate with. You're trying to get them to say yes to you. Okay, so I did some research on Twitter, and I asked various admissions tutors what qualities they were looking for in students. So my question was, what key qualities are you looking for in a university applicant? And this man, who is admissions tutor for music, said, music and musicians united by their diversity, open-mindedness, dedication, ingenuity, curiosity, and creativity crucial. But this person, Stuart Davis, who's a Hispanist, so a linguist basically, he said proven high academic ability and future potential, passion for chosen subject, intellectual flexibility, self-motivation. Then Miranda Griffin, I think she's a historian or an archaeologist, I can't remember which, but she said academic ability and potential, genuine enthusiasm for subject and motivation to study it, willingness to think independently. And then finally, Will Whitto, who teaches electrical engineering at Loughborough University, said curiosity, determination, creativity, problem-solving ability, and desire to make the world better. I think the interesting thing about all these responses for a range of different subjects is that they're actually all saying very similar things. So they all mention basically passion, having this desire to learn about the subject. They talk about curiosity, like whether you're a musician or an engineer, and they talk about creativity as well, and problem-solving ability and willingness to think independently. These are all basically the same skills, and that tells us one really important thing, and that is that a university study requires the same kind of mindset and skill set no matter what subject you're studying, and it is those things that you are trying to display and demonstrate in your personal statement. So thinking more about the qualities that universities are looking for, they want you to be resourceful, they want you to have leadership, they want you to have real passion for your subject, they want you to be able to work as a team, to be proactive, to be independent and a self-starter, to be really engaged with what you're doing, to be a good problem solver, to be thoughtful, and to have real perseverance. So when you're crafting a personal statement, you should be thinking about how to demonstrate all of those kind of qualities. So I did an interview with Sam Lucy, who is the admissions tutor at Newnham College, Cambridge, and she's also the lead person on the admissions team for the whole of Cambridge University. And she said what they're looking for in a personal statement is genuine subject enthusiasm. So you really have to be passionate about the subject that you have chosen to study. How you have furthered your interest in the subject you're applying for, it's important to critically reflect on your exploration rather than just list things. And we'll talk about that more in a little while. And it should be genuinely personal. So you are not copying and pasting what somebody else has said. This is about you and your learning journey. So the insights, those are all shared by Sam Lucy. So what should you put in a personal statement? So you should be explaining your reasons for wanting to study the subject, and those should be really personal reasons. Demonstrating your enthusiasm for and commitment to the course, expressing any particular interest within the field. So, for example, if you're choosing to study economics, which bits of economics are you particularly interested in? And outline how you've pursued your interest in your subject in your own time. So they're looking for something way more than, what you've studied in the classroom, what's been put in front of you by your teachers. They want to see that you've been to conferences or summer schools, or that you've read books, you've read articles, you've conducted experiments, you've done studies, all things off your own back, okay? So that you're showing that you're willing to go above and beyond to demonstrate your passion. So another person involved in university admissions at Leeds University, Eleanor Snare, said, "We're looking for creative thinkers, people who can think on their feet and solve problems. We're interested in your passion for learning and where you are on your learning journey." So let's talk about your learning journey and what that really means for your personal statement. So where did your learning journey with the subject you want to study at university really start? And where have you been? Where have you been so far on this learning journey? Have you visited places? Have you physically that are connected with your subject? Have you done things? Have you been places in your mind that are connected with your subject? What have you read? What connections have you made between the places you've been, the things that you've read, the things that you've been taught? What kind of thinking basically have you done? What projects have you done? What have you investigated? What questions have you answered already? What questions do you still want to answer as a result of your further studies? What do you want to do next after your university degree? So basically, where is it leading you in life? And what do you want to find out when you're actually studying at university? And where is it all going for you? So this is what I mean by your learning journey. So it's in your personal statement, you're really showing the admissions tutors that you are on this journey, where you've already been, where you are now, and where you want it to go in the future. What challenges have you faced? So Eleanor said, show you're learning, trying difficult and new things, not to show you're the best, but to show that you're reflecting on the things you've learned. And that reflection is really the important thing, because that shows that you're thinking, and thinking is the most important thing at university level. So now I'm going to talk to you about my framework, which guides you through all of the above. So how to write your amazing personal statement. So the first step is to choose. So that's about choosing courses, universities, subjects. The next step is to prepare. So you get really poor pieces of writing when you don't prepare properly before you put pen to paper or start typing on a computer screen. And only once you've prepared can you begin to actually write a really high quality personal statement. So I've divided these three steps into 3 steps of their own. So in terms of choosing, you need to choose your subject. You need to research your courses to make sure that the courses that you want selecting are the right way for you to learn, in the right environment for your how you like to learn and prefer to learn. And you need to finalise your 5 choices and decide, if you're applying to 5 UK universities, which are the right 5 for you, to kind of make sure you stand the best chance of being offered places. Then when you're preparing, you need to really do some very, very detailed research into the requirements of the 5 different courses that you're applying to, and look for the commonalities across those subjects, because you can only write you can only write one personal statement for all 5 courses. So it's really important that you write a personal statement that appeals across the 5 courses that you're applying to. And then you need to gather together all your experiences, all the things. Then you need to boost your application. Sorry, the animation's gone a bit weird on these slides. You need to boost your application. So once you've researched the requirements, you need to look at the gaps in what you've done compared to what the universities are looking for. So if you look really carefully at the university's requirements, you can see where you're missing things and you can fill those gaps in. And then finally, you can gather all your experiences together. So that's really a brainstorming exercise of writing down everything that you've ever done that you could write about in your personal statement. And only when you've done those things are you really equipped to move on to the writing stage. So you need to structure your personal statement before you write it. So if you've ever written an essay, you'll understand the importance of doing an essay plan before you write it, because a well-planned essay is always a great deal better than a poorly planned essay. And it's the same with a personal statement. So before you start writing, you will sift through all the things that you've done in the Gather Your Experiences section and create a structure that includes all the things that are going to really appeal to the admissions tutors that are going to be reading it. Then you can actually start writing. So you do all these things before you're able to start writing. But if you do all these things, the quality of your writing will be brilliant. And my clients tend to only have to write about 3 drafts, whereas other people who don't use this framework often end up writing 10, 15 or 20 drafts because they're not well enough prepared before they actually start writing. And then once you've written, you edit to perfection. So this is really the redrafting section, but it's all about editing it to make sure it's the right character limit, and it's saying what it needs to say within those characters. So let's talk about writing your draft and what this writing actually looks like. So how do you write about everything to sound super impressive and really tick the boxes for the admissions tutors? Well, step 1 is to show, don't tell. So I've read an awful lot of personal statements, and many of them, before I get my hands on them, are very, very boring. So this is kind of me doing a kind of jokey version of a really boring personal statement, but it's not that much of a joke because it is literally, I've seen one this week that was a bit like this. So it says, I have read insert name of book, which really interested me and led me to read insert name of another book. I would really like to find out more about this subject at university. I went on this summer school and found out about insert interesting concept or scientific discovery. I'm looking forward to learning more about this while I'm at university. So in this example, you're telling the admissions tutor what you've done, but it's basically really boring because you're not saying anything interesting about it. So what should you do instead? I'm going to show you some real life examples. So this is the boring version of a personal, or it's just one paragraph from a personal statement for somebody who was applying to Oxford to study English literature. And then I'm going to show you the more interesting version, better version in a minute. So, having discovered Wordsworth at the age of 13, I immediately loved his poetry. I took my interest further by investigating the Romantic movement, including listening to Isaiah Berlin's lecture series, The Roots of Romanticism. I also read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. Having also read Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto and William Godwin's Mandeville, I gained an insight into the evolution of the Gothic. I've also read critical analyses of these texts. Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter inspired me to engage with feminist literature. I'm looking forward to studying these themes in closer detail at university. So in this version, you're just telling the admissions tutor what you've done. This is a glorified list of everything that you've done. So I want to show you now how you can improve on that to make it really engaging and interesting and demonstrate your learning journey. And this is actually what was submitted. It is just one paragraph from the personal statement. So, having discovered Wordsworth at the age of 13, I was immediately enthralled by his poetry. The way he assaults the senses, conjures emotion, and resensitizes the reader to nature and humanity. So she's said that she's enthralled, but she's actually saying why she's enthralled. So the second half of that sentence is the why, and it's showing her perception and her analysis, so showing how she thinks. My interest in analysing and unpicking the complex emotional narrative behind each word led me to the Romantic movement. Isaiah Berlin's lecture series, The Roots of Romanticism, allowed me to grasp certain crucial notions from this movement, such as equating man with nature. So again, she's saying exactly what she got out of it, so her precise observations. And academic writing is all about being really specific and precise. So if you're able to be specific and precise about what you've done and what you've taken from what you've done, that's going to be really impressive to the admissions tutors. In Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights, I was intrigued by the interplay and tension between the genres of Romanticism and the Gothic, both authors using the imagery of nature to deepen the reader's understanding of the characters' experiences. So again, she's not just said what she's read, but she's saying what she's observed in that reading, again showing her ability to be critical and analytical. Interestingly, having also read Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto and William Godwin's Mandeville, I gained an insight into the evolution of the Gothic. So she's taking that thing about the Gothic one step further, showing her desire to further her interest in her own personal learning journey. Reading critical analyses of these texts has enabled me to appreciate the changes and social anxieties that were occurring at that time. Nathaniel Hawthorne's ability to spark social debates on the expectations of women in The Scarlet Letter inspired me to engage with feminist literature, as it revealed to me how a writer's work can be used to promote change and generate discussion. I'm looking forward to studying these themes in closer detail at university. So I hope you can see from that example how throughout that paragraph, in the first half of the sentence, she's saying what she's done, but in the second half of the sentences, she's explaining what she got from doing that particular thing. And it's that second half of the sentence that is really demonstrating to admissions tutors, showing admissions tutors what you think and your true intellectual potential. And that's what they're really, really interested in. Okay, so that is an example for English. This is an example for maths with computer science. So let's have a look at this. This is the boring option. So after looking at integration in my A-level studies, I discovered differential equations, and I set out to try to solve homogeneous and non-homogeneous types of first-order DEs. That's differential equations. While I was studying the mathematics of change, I discovered the methods of calculus. But as Mandelbrot pointed out, uniform objects do not appear in nature. This led me to come across the subject of fractals, which I found so captivating. I later decided to carry out two personal projects in the form of an experiment, one modelling fractals to understand more about it, the other, since I have been playing guitar for 2 years, analysing the fractal dimension of rock music. So on the surface, this does sound quite impressive because there's lots of fancy words in it, but it, again, is basically just a list. So what can you do to make it better? After looking at integration in my A-level studies, I discovered differential equations, and I set out to try to solve homogeneous and non-homogeneous types of first-order DEs. I immediately engaged with DEs as it as it is used to explain behaviours, like the investigation on how long humans would survive during a zombie apocalypse, as modelled by Oxford professor Thomas Woolley using the diffusion equation. So that first sentence is telling us what he did, but the second sentence is explaining his kind of insight and that he's learned more about it and how it has been applied by people in the field. While I was studying the mathematics of change, I discovered the methods of calculus were only to be used when a curve was smooth. But as Mandelbrot pointed out, the uniform objects do not appear in nature. This led me to come across the subject of fractals, which I found so captivating as it explains the rest of the world. So here he's showing his journey from calculus, kind of displaying or explaining kind of the perfect, almost like lab conditions, whereas fractals help us to understand what goes on in the real world. I later decided to carry out 2 personal projects in the form of an experiment, one modelling fractals to understand more about it, the other, since I have been playing guitar for 2 years, analysing the fractal dimension of rock music. Now this second personal statement, this is not as good as the English one because he doesn't have quite the depth of insight and commentary on the things that he's done. He has some of it, but not the same depth. Okay, so if you're using a model, use that first one, the English one. And it doesn't matter what subject you're doing, you know, whether you're studying English or economics or engineering or whatever it is that you want to study, the writing style is the same. It's about saying what you've done and then your kind of critical exploration or critical understanding and demonstrating your learning journey as a result of that thing, like within sentences or one sentence after another. Okay, so the real thing, like the key message I want you to take from looking at those examples is that you are showing the admissions tutors what you've done and how you think. You're not telling them. So, you know, you can't really say to anyone, you know, I'm an analytical thinker. Where's the proof? You want to provide the proof by showing examples of your critical thinking and your analysis and your curiosity and creativity and all those things that the admissions tutors say they want to see. Okay, so how do you show rather than tell? So instead of listing everything you've done, say what you thought about it. Say how you interpreted it, what questions it made you ask, where it led you next, e.g. what book did you read next, place did you visit, or conversation did you have, how it contributed to your understanding, how it helped with your project or EPQ, or what it makes you want to do next, or like on your learning journey or in your career or whatever. You don't have to do all of these things for everything that you write about in your personal statement, like every book that you read or conference that you go to or lecture that you attend. You just need to pick 1 or 2 of these things, and that is enough to show the admissions tutors how you're thinking. Okay, we've talked about, we've talked about how to write. Another thing to really think about is grabbing the admissions tutor's attention right from the very first line of your personal statement and really making your story and your application leap out at them as being particularly interesting to make you stand out from the crowd. So your opening sentence, if you think about reading a really great page turner of a novel, your opening sentence needs to be a bit like that. So I looked at some of the opening sentences of some of the best books on my own bookshelf, and I just want to share them with you here. So the first one is from The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood, and she said, 10 days after the war ended, my sister Laura drove a car off a bridge. So to me, that's absolutely fascinating. You're like, why would somebody like commit suicide 10 days after the war had ended. You know, that should be a time of hope and rebuilding and all that kind of thing. You know, what's going on there? That's really intriguing. You want to know the reasons behind it. The next one, Kazuo Ishiguro, The Remains of the Day. It seems increasingly likely that I really will undertake the expedition that has been preoccupying my imagination now for some days. So you're like, what expedition? Like, why is it being preoccupying your imagination? It just makes you ask questions and makes you want to get the answers to those questions, so you continue reading. Then we've got Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Now, this is a really tongue-in-cheek kind of piece of social commentary that makes people laugh. And, you know, it's very much of its time, you know, the early 1800s. But, you know, it has that hook that you think, oh, this is going to be humorous, social commentary, interesting, that kind of thing. Next one is Isabella Allende, The House of the Spirits. Barabbas came to us by sea, the child Clara wrote in her delicate calligraphy. So it's just like, who's Barabbas? How do they get to you on the sea? You know, how old is Barabbas? You know, there's just so many questions. It's just intriguing. And then Wilkie Collins, The Woman in White. This is the story of what a woman's patience can endure and what a man's resolution can achieve. So you're just like, wow, yeah, women are patient and men do have resolution, and what can they achieve? Let's find out. And then finally, Robert Harris, The Ghost. The moment I heard how Macara died, I should have walked away. Just fascinating, intriguing. So these are all really high quality, world-renowned novelists, but so I'm not expecting you to be able to maybe come up with that. But what I want you to take from this is that your opening sentence should begin to tell the story of your learning journey in an intriguing and arresting way that makes the admissions tutor want to keep reading. So it's a real hook. So what I advise people to do is draft at least 10 versions of their opening sentence. So choose an anecdote or a moment in your life where you really hooked into the subject that you want to study at university, and you write something really intriguing to hook the admissions tutor's attention. But because you're not a world-class novelist, you might have to have like several goes at practicing that to come up with the best one. Okay, my last tip on writing a really good personal statement is to write to the word limit. So here I've got some suggested character allocations. So a personal statement, it can be up to 4,000 characters long, and you get 39 lines in the UCAS software to spread those 4,000 characters across. So these are my suggested character limits. And what I mean when I say write to the word limit is to literally, when you're writing your first paragraph, your what and your why paragraph, you say, right, as you're writing it, you keep checking how many characters you've written. So have I written too many? Have I written too few? If I've written too few, what more can I say about this? If I've written too many, how can I say what I'm trying to say in fewer words? And if you go about it like this, you won't end up like the girl I was working with on Thursday, who had written 6,000 characters, over 6,000 characters, and we had to cut it down to 4,000 characters. And there was another girl I was working with on Thursday who'd written 2,700 characters, so we had to get it up to 4,000 characters so that she was taking the full opportunity of the personal statement to really sell herself to the admissions tutors. So really use these character limits and write to the limit, so that you're not writing way over or way under. You're coming out just right, and that will massively decrease the amount of time that you have to spend editing and redrafting. Okay, to finish off, I just want to share some do's and don'ts with you about writing your personal statements. So Use different words at the beginning of sentences as often as possible. Write in the first person, so in your own voice. Use words that you understand and would normally use to express yourself. So don't basically swallow a thesaurus to try and sound fancy. Make it authentic by using words that you know and understand and would naturally use in conversation with your teachers, or if you were to meet the admissions tutor with them. Use shorter sentences, they're easier to write and easier for the reader to understand. And try to tell stories, even if they're really short, like only a sentence long, so that the reader can get a strong impression of who you are and what you stand for. And what you shouldn't do is start every sentence with the word I, because it's just boring. Swallow a thesaurus and use loads of words that you don't understand. Use slang or swear words. Write about things that you wouldn't be comfortable talking about in interview or when you finally meet the admissions tutor for the first time. Or try to be funny. Even if you're the funniest person alive, it's really difficult to tell jokes on a screen, and particularly in a personal statement. So in today's session, we have been through my framework for how to write an amazing personal statement. We have particularly focused on the write your draft section, okay? But there are all these other sections, which if you're interested in having more help with, you can find out more about in my personal statement masterclass. And if you visit personalstatementmasterclass.co.uk, you can find out all about the masterclass and how to sign up for it. But the masterclass is basically split into these three modules: choose, prepare, and write. And then there's a video for each of these sections here. So there's a video on choose your subject, there's another one on researching your courses and all this kind of thing, and the workbook, which is really practical. It gives you writing frames and checklists and all that kind of thing to make sure that your personal statement is as quick to write as possible, written in as few drafts as possible, is as brilliant as possible, so that you get offered the places that you want at the universities that you've chosen. And it just basically takes the stress and worry and uncertainty out of the whole process for you. So if you'd like to find out more, please come over and visit my main website, which is called lifemoreextraordinary.com. You can find the Personal Statement Masterclass at personalstatementmasterclass.co.uk, and then you can find these other resources at these other URLs. But I'll leave that up on the screen because I believe Joey would like to ask some questions. So yeah.
Yep, so we are open for Q&A. Oh, there's a question in the chat box. Can you see the chat box?
I'll open it up.
Yep.
Okay. So do you think that reading a lot is one of the most important components that will help you write a good college essay? If you say yes, what would you suggest to students? How often or how much they need to read? Okay, so reading, yes. So I don't know if you've ever heard the term, you don't study a subject at university, you read a subject at university. That's most applicable to arts and science, social science subjects. But you know, when I was at university, by the time I was in my third year, I only had 4 lectures a week and 1 supervision, and the rest of the time was spent in the library reading. So yes, reading is a really important way to demonstrate to admissions tutors that you've got what it takes to study at that level at university. And it also shows that you have gone over and above what is in your school curriculum. And it's probably the cheapest and most accessible way as well to do other things. So you can go to, sorry, the slide keeps changing. you can go to lectures or watch TED Talks or read media articles or go on field visits or do work experience or anything like that. All those things are applicable, and some of those things are more applicable to some subjects than others. But reading is the fundamental, and I would suggest that everybody needs to read an absolute minimum of 2 books to write about in their personal statement. And you would, if you're reading a subject like English or history or something like that, you should have loads of books. So 2 is the minimum, 4 is ideal if you're doing something like, I don't know, economics or engineering or something. But if you're doing a much more text-based subject, then even more than that is preferable.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I have a question, Lucy. What's the weightage placed on personal statement versus your academic grades?
Okay, it really depends on the university and kind of the caliber of the university you're applying to, in terms of how important the personal statement is. And different universities will weigh up grades, personal statements, admissions tests, interviews in different ways. So universities in the UK are really divided into the selective universities and the recruiting universities. So the selective universities are the ones that are really, really competitive to get into, and the recruiting ones are the ones who are just basically trying to get student numbers up and will almost take anybody just to get your fees. Okay, and so the selective ones, the whole picture is important. Basically, the grades earn you the right to have your personal statement read, okay? Or your predicted grades or the grades that you've achieved so far earn you the right to get your personal statement read. And then the personal statement plus the admissions tests are put together, are the gateway to interview. And then in the UK, most students don't get that actual grades until after they've been offered places. So the actual grades are the kind of the sanity check on the whole process. So for example, at Oxbridge, at an individual Oxbridge college, they might have space for 6 students to study a particular subject, but they might offer 7 or 8 students places, expecting 2 of those students not to get the grades in their exams. So the exams are kind of the final filter on the application process. But the reason that the admissions tests are becoming more and more important is because so many people are getting really, really good grades that the grades don't really tell the universities enough to be able to make decisions off the back of the grades. So they need all this other information, including the personal statement and the admissions tests and stuff, to make those decisions. So there's not one clear answer to that question. It very much depends on the university that you're applying to.
All right, that's a question in the chat.
So should the books be in English, or can we read books that are in other languages for writing it in the personal statement? I don't see why you can't read books in other languages, but you will need to be able to discuss the ideas in those books in English and be able to name those books in English as well. I think it's most helpful with the reading if they are books that the admissions tutors are more likely to have heard of, because it's just a signal to them of the type and quality of things that you're reading and understanding. So yeah, I would prefer, I would steer you more to reading in English, because you'll be studying in English as well, so it's good background. It's a good development of your understanding of English. If you're studying languages, reading the languages that you want to study, but I would steer you more towards reading in English if you're not studying languages. Okay, I can see another question. Just to make this clear, when you mentioned about the character limit a moment ago, did you mean character as in words or alphabet, letters? Yeah, it's letters. So they don't have word count, they have a character count. So that's literally the number of letters, spaces, punctuation marks, all that kind of thing. That's what they count. It's 4,000 across 39 lines. So sometimes you'll write 4,000 characters and then you'll copy and paste it into the UCAS software. And if it doesn't fit onto the 39 lines, you still have to make a few adjustments and edits to make it fit. So it's a good idea as you're drafting to keep copying and pasting it into the UCAS website without submitting it, so that you can see whether it's fitting into those 39 lines as well.
All right. Lucy, what are the common mistakes that students make?
One of the most common, well, I kind of talked about it quite a lot, but it's telling rather than showing. So just like writing this great big list of stuff you've done without kind of explaining the journey behind it, or your what you've gained from it, the questions, the analysis, and all that kind of thing. Another big thing is trying to teach the admissions tutors through your personal statement. So a lot of students will be like, this is how this particular piece of maths works, or this is this concept in economics. And you're like, well, these people are experts who've studied this thing their entire lives. They know this stuff. They don't need you to teach it to them. You need to show what you think about it, not explain what it is. Okay, and by showing what you think about it, you're showing that you understand it already, because you couldn't have perceptive thoughts if you didn't actually understand it. In practical terms, massive mistake is starting to write before you've been through all the stages that I talked about. So, on this slide, I've got the there's basically 7 steps that you need to go through before you actually start to write. And I'll have often personal statements presented to me and they're just a mess because they haven't been thought through properly. The people haven't researched what the universities are looking for. They haven't made sure that they've boosted their experiences, like done all that further reading and stuff. And it's just, you have to kind of wipe it all out and start again if students don't put that proper preparation into place. And the final massive mistake is not writing to the word limit. It's just like, I'll just write until I've exhausted everything I have to say. And then you've got 8,000 characters and you're like, I've got to cut this down by half. And students often find that really hard. It's almost like every word is sacred once it's been written down, and they just can't choose which bits to leave in and which bits to take out. And you're just basically making yourself a problem if you don't write to the word limit as closely as you possibly can. It's all right to have a few extra characters, like 4,500 or 4,800 or something. That's quite an easy thing to remedy, but 8,000, nightmare.
All right. For students who are applying to, say, different majors at different universities, what's your advice to them in regards to their personal statement?
I would strongly advise against applying to very different subjects. So I wouldn't suggest you apply to economics at one university and engineering at another university. I would advise you to apply to related courses, because there is only one personal statement. So if you write half of your personal statement about one subject and half of your personal statement about another subject, you're basically only using half your opportunity to sell yourself to the admissions tutor for each of those subjects. And the different universities don't know what other courses you're applying to. So if you've applied to economics, but you spend a particular admissions tutor's university, but you spend half of your personal statement talking about engineering, they'll be like, what on earth is this? What's going on here? So, I've heard of students, for example, I know of one person who applied for maths and music, but I think applied for maths at one university, and then everybody else, it was maths and music. So with that, the emphasis would have been on maths with some music in there, but relating music to maths, or I had somebody who applied for physics and philosophy. So there, it's about the overlap between the two subjects. So if you imagine a Venn diagram where you've got the two subjects in circles, you look for the bits of the subjects that overlap with each other and focus on that overlap in your personal statement. Um, so would you suggest it's better to apply decided or undecided? You can't apply with being undecided. You have to pick specific courses that you want to study. And in the UK, we don't call them majors, that's American language. So we you pick a course and you go to study that course. The UK education system is quite different from the American system. We're very focused on one particular subject at university, whereas in America, at undergraduate level, you can study quite a broad range of subjects. So, when you're making these decisions, you basically have to decide, do you like the UK approach of being very focused and specific, or do you like the American approach of being able to be very broad? You can have majors within the American approach, but you can be very broad at the same time.
All right, okay. All right, so looks like we've answered all the questions from the audience. Any final advice from you, Lucy, about how they can start preparing?
I think the important thing is to start doing the research, start looking at the different courses available, start looking at what's attractive to you, what isn't, and then from there you can start choosing the reading and further activities that you're going to do to boost your application, so make it really attractive to the admissions tutors. And the earlier you start to do that, the better, because I read a personal statement earlier this week that the guy had basically read 3 books this summer, and it read very much like he's read 3 books this summer, and it doesn't show a long-lasting invested interest in the subjects. It just looks like, oh, I picked this subject and I thought I'd do the further reading for the personal statement, and that's what it looks like. So if possible, this should be going on for at least 18 months before you write the application. If not, that's fine. You'll probably have things that you can write about anyway from because if you're naturally interested in that subject, you'll have been doing things anyway. But the earlier you kind of get onto it, the better. But I just can't emphasize enough how important this framework is for making it streamlined and smooth and effective. I've seen lots and lots of people really struggle and waste an awful lot of time, and it doesn't have to be like that.
Okay, thank you so much. So for students here, if you're interested to learn more about crafting a good personal statement, do visit the link provided by Lucy, and yeah, perhaps sign up for the personal statement masterclass. I think it will be really, really useful. All right, so Lucy, thank you very much for being on this summit. We learned loads from you today. For the audience here, if you're interested in the next session, we'll take a 30-minute break and we'll be back here at 4:30 Kuala Lumpur time or 5:30 if you are tuning in from Japan. All right, so we'll be pasting the link now for you to provide some feedback about this session. So please take a couple of minutes to fill up the feedback, and we'll be back here at 4:30. So we will leave the link up for...
I just want to say thank you to everybody who's saying thank you. I've really enjoyed doing this for you today and hope it was useful.